And now we're going to talk about Argentina, where their new president, Javier Milei, is making waves by rolling back some of the country's socialist policies and regulations to, so far, excellent results. Newsweek reports that Javier Milei got rid of rent control in Argentina, and housing supply has skyrocketed. Now, if you don't know, rent control is policies where the government caps how much landlords can charge in rents. It's a form of price controls. Economists almost universally think it's a bad idea, but it's often very politically popular because it sounds great when politicians tell people, I'll cap your rents, I'll help you out, and they don't actually think about the long-term economic consequences, which usually far outweigh any positive. Because when you constrain what landlords can charge in rent, you reduce the incentive for them to rent out their apartments at all, to expand their buildings, to offer more housing, and your overall supply is constrained, which ironically, overall and over time, leads to higher prices and a housing shortage. That's exactly what happened in Argentina, but now that Milei is changing the policy, things are rapidly reversing. Argentina's recent repeal of rent control by Libertarian President Javier Milei has led to a surge in housing supply, with the freedom to negotiate contracts, previously restricted, directly causing a drop in rental prices. Milei, a self-described anarcho-capitalist known for his free market approach, repealed the 2020 rental law enacted by former leftist President Alberto Fernandez, which had imposed restrictions on landlords and led to a significant decline in rental availability. No way. You're telling me the law did the exact same negative thing that economists have always said it would do? This is my shocked face. The law aimed to provide tenants with more financial security, but by the end of last year, an estimated 1 in 7 homes in Buenos Aires was sitting empty as landlords chose not to rent them out in Argentine pesos. Deposits were capped, and it was nearly impossible to end tenancies early. For many locals, finding a new apartment had become mission impossible, but after the repeal, Buenos Aires saw a doubling of available rental units, and rental prices have stabilized. Under the new rules, landlords and tenants have more freedom to agree on lease terms, and if the duration isn't specified, it defaults to 2 years. The numbers here are really astounding, guys. Since Milei's repeal of rent control laws took effect on December 29, the supply of rental housing in Buenos Aires has jumped by 195%. According to the Statistical Observatory of the Real Estate Market of the Real Estate College. That is a huge increase in the housing supply that will help alleviate the shortage and bring down prices. Now, none of this is actually surprising. It is all Econ 101 level stuff. But somehow these policies, these rent control policies, remain popular in much of the Western world, even though they've almost always failed horrifically, and economists nearly universally reject them. And my question, after seeing this Argentina success story, is will American progressives ever learn? They continue to double down on these insane price controls, these rent control policies in progressive bubbles like New York City, where 44% of rental units are rent controlled, according to the New York Times. But they still have a mass affordability crisis. Shocker. Meanwhile, both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have recently endorsed the idea of a national rent control policy, which I broke down previously why it's such a bad idea, but would have the same exact consequences of reducing landlords' incentive to supply housing and reducing their incentive to provide maintenance and amenities, and ultimately making the problem worse. Housing is way too expensive in many parts of this country, but price controls are not a solution. We need to actually build and offer more housing to the market, which has been made very difficult and very expensive in localities across the country through excessive regulation and zoning and, yes, rent control. I sincerely hope that people like Joe and Kamala and other progressives look and see yet another example of this policy failing, this time in Argentina, and realize that they're making a massive mistake by promoting the same failed ideas here in the States. But I won't be holding my breath waiting for them to make that realization, because the sad truth is they probably know it, but just don't care because they think voters are too stupid to know better and will just like the promise of cheaper housing. That's just my take. You guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. And do you like Javier Milei? I find him certainly an interesting figure, shall we say.